Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Expert Roundup. And today we have our amazing guest, Joy Sherelud, who manages a company called PPC Ad Advance, and he's pro when it's come to PPC. Let me add Joe here, and then Joe will start with his introduction. Hi Joe, welcome to Expert Roundup.
Hey, Atif, thanks for having me on. Yeah, so just to give a quick introduction on me, like you said, I'm the CEO of Ad Advance. I actually started my Amazon journey in 2014 as a seller. So I kind of went through the different progressions that many sellers go through. So I started out testing the waters, doing retail arbitrage. So I found different products at stores that were discounted and sold them on Amazon and made a profit there. Progressed into private labeling, and then as I was doing private labeling, then started really getting into the advertising side and saw the opportunity that we had for advertising. So from there, our business has really grown from the seller perspective to the advertising agency side. And so I'd love to dig into some of the details there. We can go through a lot of the different strategies, techniques that we're using. Currently, for our agency, we work with sellers. We fully manage their ads, and we run both sponsored ads and DSP campaigns. So, really, any questions that we have for Amazon advertising as a whole, I'd be happy to go through and cover with you.
So I really like the one thing, like you started as a seller yourself back in 2014, and now you're running your own agency, which mainly focus on PPC or managing a PPC for clients. So how this transition happened, like from seller to a service provider, and why
Yeah,
is it happen actually? I
yeah.
am keen to know both things.
Yeah. So as I was going through as a seller, I got to the point where I had to figure out, all right, if I want to keep expanding my selling business, I need to bring somebody on to manage my ads. So I get to the spot where a lot of sellers are reaching out to us. And as I was selling, I've got an engineering background. And so I was building some basic tools for PPC optimization. And when I started reaching out to different agencies, realized that I was actually doing a lot more than they were. And so that kind of light bulb went off and said, maybe I can help out other sellers on the advertising side. This was back in 2016. And so advertising's obviously changed quite a bit since then. And so from there, we've been able to build up a ton of tools and different strategies that we've been able to utilize. But really, it was seeking, from my perspective, trying to find somebody to manage it for me, and then realizing that what I was doing was kind of unique, and thought that maybe I could help some other people out.
So since this transition happened, did you quit your Amazon business and
Uh,
you're mainly focusing on this as of now?
Yeah, so I actually still have the seller business. It's more of a
Yeah.
sandbox for testing different ads at this point. I have somebody else who completely manages it for me. So we just use it like, new cutting edge ad strategies. Let's try it out on the seller account first. We can learn from my account, and then if it goes well, let's expand it out to different client accounts.
So that's a funny part here. Like you always test new strategies on your account first. If anything happens, it's your account. Your client will always be safe, right?
Yep, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
a good one. I would say people to follow this one for sure. Like whenever they are working with clients, if they have their own Amazon account, test things first, and then they can implement all these things on their client's account. Else, their client will be very angry if
Yeah.
things get really messed up. So, as you know, like Amazon has been progressing like every single day. We see changes in industry, especially on Amazon business every single day. Strategy that are working few months back are not working as of now. So, how you people coop up? Like how you people come up with new strategy every day, every month, every week? How this works?
Sure. Yeah. So we have a couple things going for us. We're actually a part of Amazon's agency development program, which means that we get to work directly with the Amazon advertising team for any new features that are being launched. And just to put it in perspective for everybody, Amazon is a huge company. And it really has three main profit drivers. So one is their e-commerce business that everybody knows about. The second is Amazon Web Services. And then the third is Amazon Advertising. And Amazon Advertising is growing at an incredible rate. So they are continually investing and putting a lot of amazing people working on new features to come out. So it's just going to keep accelerating on the new feature side for Amazon Advertising because they're getting such a great return on it. So from our perspective, we want to be heavily involved in that process. And through the agency development program, we've been able to tie in with their different tech teams as they're rolling out new features, and we actually get to be one of the first to test them before they widely roll it out. One piece that why we're able to do that is we have in-house developers that work with us, and we have proprietary software, so we can incorporate these features in really quickly. And then the other piece that we have is that we manage our clients' full accounts, so we don't have like a front-facing user interface where, like a dashboard where other people can change it. So we just need to design it for ourselves, which allows us to iterate pretty quickly and make sure that we're testing out these new features, and then we combine them into more holistic strategies using all the different ad types.
Yeah, that's amazing actually. You are working closely with Amazon actually. So that's amazing. Like Amazon advertisement network. That's good. Okay, so one thing, as I know Joe, you for quite some time, I know you have like all these amazing cutting edge tools to manage your client PPC. So what's your focus on, right? As we see things are progressing rapidly when it's come to AI, machine learning. So are you into this, or are you a man? Like I call this term. So there are two terms. One is automation. You put everything on AI and machine learning, and one is man handling all this thing. I will call it a man-mation thing.
Yeah.
Automation and man-mation. So what your focuses are like? Is this an automation that you people focus on? Like with time, you people see, okay, probably you can move on machine learning and AI stuff, or you would like to keep everything by like man-made. So
Yeah.
you want to handle everything on your own. So how? So what do
It,
you think?
it's a balance between the three. So we utilize purely manual processes, we utilize automation, and we utilize machine learning. And so I think the key thing is really understanding from the start what are the pieces that each is going to do best at. So for instance, we can start on like the automation side. So automation is great for like bidding algorithms or for placement adjustments or for setting up different campaign funnel structures where you're trying to go from more broad to exact. Um, that is great for automation along with like reporting. But whenever we roll out new features, we always try to take a look back and say, all right, what's going to be the key pieces? Like, where are humans with intuition going to do better than automation? And things like keyword research, setting overall goals for your campaigns, those cannot be easily automated. And so, what we try to do is we try to balance the two, focus on the key things that we need from the manual side, and then supplement that with the automation. And then on top of that, we can use machine learning. So we do utilize like machine learning or AI. Ways that we do that are for like AI and machine learning is definitely not going to solve all your problems, but it's great for certain things. Like certain things could be like predicting, using historical patterns to predict the future. So for instance, Saturdays usually convert lower than Mondays. And so let's increase the bids on Mondays and let's cut back the bids on Saturdays. So we're bidding more when your customers are most likely to convert. So really with this balance of machine learning, automation, and manual management, we feel like you can get the best of all three worlds, and that combination we feel like sets us apart.
So I agree because things work this way. So you need to keep a balance of everything, where you need to include all these automated softwares, which includes machine learning and AI, and you need to like you need to handle things on your own. Like because I completely agree that you have mentioned one thing that on Monday bids are pretty much high, on Saturday bids are pretty much low, and this is something that you have been noticing for quite few time after having a like machine after getting it from machine learning perspective and from AI perspective, and there is a man thing involved that you need to see and look all this thing, and you need to find out the parameters. What are the parameters for it? So, okay, one thing that I want to ask here is what bidding strategy should I use? Like, if I launch a new product, what should be the bidding strategy that I should use for all my new launches? And like,
Yeah.
what are the categories? Like, if I am going for a supplement, then what should be the uh, prime focus like what should be my prime focus, and if I'm launching a regular product, what should be my prime focus?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So, in general, for like bidding strategies, say we'll take two different situations. So, one is a more established product that you have. Typically, what we do is dynamic down bidding. So, this was the default in Amazon previously for bidding strategies. And by using dynamic down, it gives Amazon the leeway to decrease your bids if they don't feel like it's going to convert well for certain terms. And so there's definitely a benefit because it kind of helps backstop and make sure that you're not spending too much for different keywords. However, if you're launching a new product, we found that fixed bids tend to work best for a bidding strategy overall. And the reason is that when you're launching a new product, your key goal is to not get a great ACOS or ROAS from the start. Your key goal for advertising from the start for launches is to get that initial traction, those initial sales, get those reviews, and then as you build up the social proof for your listings, now at that point you can transition more to like an ACOS or ROAS focus. Fixed bids are great in that situation because you can pick some very targeted keywords to really focus on and try to get ranked for. Fixed bids will make sure that your bids don't get cut back. And then at that point, now you can really establish yourself for those keywords, get those initial sales, get those initial reviews, get that organic ranking up. And now at that point, we can transition more to like a more general strategy where we can use dynamic down, set up some more keyword funnels for it, and then just transition more from a focus to generating those initial sales to, all right, now let's establish long-term profitability for the account, if that makes sense.
Oh my God, that do make sense, and that was a clear representation. Like I got answer to my question for sure. So I have one question from Faraz, and so here's the question on the screen. If your brand is known, how do you work on new to brand search terms when objective is to create awareness, which can convert into buyer later?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a great question. A key ad that you can use to do that are sponsored brand ads. And so if you're trying to get new people to your brand, sponsored brand ads are a great way to go. So if you compare sponsored brands to sponsored products and sponsored display. Sponsored products and sponsored display, usually when people click on them, they're further down the funnel. For sponsored brands, they're still browsing around and trying to figure out, what brand should I purchase? I'm not quite ready to buy, but I want to compare these different ones and see which ones I should go for. So I would really focus on sponsored brand ads. And then one method that we've seen that really stands out is instead of directing them directly to a product listing, use sponsored brand ads and direct them to a storefront. And with your storefront, now you can really customize that more with specific messages for your brand, get them introduced to your brand, and then you link to your product pages from that. Once you have that, now you can it gives you much more time to establish your brand on Amazon, which is a hard thing to do without the storefront and like sponsored brand ads because each of the product listings are, more in, you have to play within Amazon sandbox for those. So sponsored brands are great. Sponsored brand video is another one to really establish and bring other people
Yeah,
to your brand too.
hot in topic these days. Sponsored video ad, sponsored brand video ad. So can you give a little insight or like a brief what sponsored video ads are? Most of the people know, but how we can use it more effectively and efficiently instead of using our regular PPC ads. So what's your take on sponsored video ads?
For sure. Yeah. So sponsor brand video is pretty cool. And the key reason is that there's a few actually. So if I go down in the search term report, so I type in a search term and I'm looking for, like right now it's pretty cold here. So we'll say I'm looking for winter gloves and go down and I see this video and it's somebody that's actually using their winter gloves. It's showing how they're different. It's showing the insulation. It's showing how warm they are. It's showing people using them. I can get a pretty quick understanding of what that product is, how it's different, and what makes that brand unique. The other piece is when they show up, they take up a lot of real estate, both on desktop and mobile. So, usually you'll have like 2 or 3 products on the desktop side. For sponsor brand video, it takes up the entire row. And in many cases, it can take up most of the screen. And so as long as you have a video that's going to draw attention right away, so people stop scrolling, and then watch all the way through and differentiate what your product is like. Then if they click through, they're much more likely to buy. And so we tend to see conversion rates about 2 times higher. So meaning, like, if average 1 out of 10 people buy after clicking an ad, sponsor brand video, on average 2 out of 10 people buy. So you're getting a much better return for these ads. Yes, they do cost more because there's not as many of these ads available, but what we're seeing is with the higher conversion rate, it tends to be a great investment, especially if you have a really solid video that, one, gets their attention from the start to get them to stop scrolling, and then two, really allows them to differentiate themselves.
Okay, so one thing, like when we are running a sponsored video ad, what should be the like if I want to run an ad, so what are the elements that I should consider while I am getting a video? So because you are already working with a whole lot of clients and you probably run video ads for them, so
Yep.
which video convert most? Is it a lifestyle video or a infographic video or a animated video? What should be the video to have best conversion possible?
Sure. And I would say it would depend on the products. Like, for instance, I have 3 kids. And so some things that I end up buying is some toys for my children. And one thing that I love to see is these toys in use. For instance, if I buy like a science rocket kit or something for my son, I would love to see that thing in use. And so for those type of products, showing actual use cases and people using the product, that's really helpful for me to get a full understanding of that product itself.
Okay, so
In other
it's
cases, like say for like the glove instance, or if you're more in like clothing or different pieces like that, like lifestyle may be a lot better just to give that overall brand impression that you have. So I would take a step back and see, like, is my product easy to understand how it's used? If not, then that could be a great video to really look at. If you're just trying to establish more of like a brand image, then more of a lifestyle type video may be good. And ideally, what you do is you test both and see which ones perform best. And then from that testing, and then you can really determine where to invest your money into.
okay. So we have question from Hubab, and he says, "Can you explain a bit more about your low bid seeding strategy?"
Yeah. So great question, and thanks for following along with the post. This one's kind of a fun one. So what we do is we look at search term reports and see from a search term perspective, like what is the most dense words that come up in search terms. So for instance, if we go to the winter glove category, it definitely would be gloves. Could be winter, could be the color red. And so we find these keywords that may not necessarily by themselves link back to the product. But what we do is we take the most dense keywords and then we put them in a campaign with a really low bid, say about 5 cents. We use a higher placement percentage. We can use dynamic up and down bidding, put them as a phrase match. At the end of the day, they get clicks for a really low cost per click. They're definitely not going to convert as well because they are much broader, but Amazon does a pretty good job of still showing the ads for terms that they would be relevant. So we've actually had weird cases, and we've tested this a lot, where we honestly ran a seeding campaign and one of the keywords was the, like, the most common word in the English language. And it has actually performed really well on an ACOS basis. And so that is the keyword. It's the. And so, well, I mean, what Amazon's doing in the background is they're still looking at like the overall search term, because nobody's just searching for the word the. It's the surrounded by other words that show up. And then they're saying, okay, this is highly relevant for whatever reason with the bid auction. I don't have anybody else that's really bidding, so I'm going to give them the placement for like 7 cents. And then
Oh my
some
God.
people end up converting, and we've been seeing a really solid ACOS overall.
So this seeding strategy is pretty interesting, actually. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
does
So
not have
so
any
in
relation with the
general,
product itself. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
general strategy. Oh my God. So, like, do you test this seeding strategy on every account or like just for the fun thing, fun
yeah.
part?
Yeah,
I would
so
say.
we first tested it on specific accounts, made sure that it made sense. This is kind of an off the wall
Yeah.
strategy, and these are the tinkering and testing that we're having fun doing, and this is why I'm always smiling too, just because there's a lot of fun stuff to do. And so for results like this, I'm obviously surprised, but yeah, it's been performing really well. So as we see these strategies, some that are kind of off the wall, if they keep working, then we'll roll them out to more and more clients. We can do that pretty easy with our software. So this is becoming more and more of a general strategy. So key things are look at your search term report, find the most dense keywords, put them as a single keyword or so a single word keyword. You can
Mhm.
do a broader phrase. It doesn't really matter there. And then just really low bid. You can do a top of placement adjustment if you'd like. You can do dynamic up and down to give it a little bit more leeway. And then just really watch the overall results. The key thing is you're getting such a low cost per click that you can take some of the lower conversion rates that you see from them and still get a solid return in terms of ACOS or
Oh,
ROAS.
that's really a good strategy to test. Okay, so we have question from Sabah. She says, "What click-through rate is reasonable for KDP? Like, are you people doing KDP as well?"
Yeah, so honestly, that is one piece. So I said you can ask me anything Amazon advertising, and we have
Yeah,
not done much for ebooks.
yeah.
So I'm not going to be able to give you a specific click-through rate for ebooks specifically. But what I can say for a general click-through rate that we see, one, know that it's highly dependent on the placement. So for instance, like top of search, sponsored product ads click-through rate around 1.5% to 2.5% to 3%. Those are all pretty normal. For general sponsored product ads, I would say about 0.5% to 1%. So 1 out of 100 to 1 out of 200 people who see them clicks, that's pretty normal. For product placement, so product placement, when you're on the product page and you scroll down and there's the whole carousel of ads, um,
Yeah.
it, you your likelihood of getting clicked is a lot lower. So for those, we can see like 0.2% to 0.5% for click through rates. So I would say in general on sponsored product ads as a whole, like 0.5% to 1% is pretty normal, but just know it's highly dependent on the placement that you're using and the ad type that you're using too.
Yeah, that's a great representation of the question for Sabah. Actually, you guys don't do, and I have been seen most of the service provider working on this domain, KDP section especially. So why people are not into this KDP advertisement site? Why they focus on Amazon FBA and this Amazon private label sector especially?
Yeah, personally for us, I don't know the ebook space as well. I know the seller space a lot better, and so
Yeah.
I can definitely relate from the start on the seller side. So maybe that's why personally for us, we've gravitated to the seller perspective, just because I understand the space so much better. For the ebook space, I don't understand that as well. I think we've never made a specific call to not do ebooks. I think we've just naturally gravitated towards those areas where we really understand.
Oh my God. Okay, so we have from Kamal. He said, "Is it viable to run auto PPC on new launches in order to get data or keyword?" So this is a strategy that everyone's do, but I just want to hear what your feedback, like especially your feedback on this one, because this
Yeah,
is what every new Amazon seller do: run auto campaign and get a whole lot of keywords, and then put those keyword in manual targeting.
sure.
So I just want to know your feedback on this.
Yeah. So it's definitely a good strategy to run auto campaigns for new product launches. Um, when looking at product launches, I would kind of segment your ad spend into two different categories from the start. So, one is look at the manual campaigns and try to find very relevant keywords to start off with. So, if there's specific search terms that I know I should rank for, populate those in your manual campaigns and more aggressively bid those from the start. So you can look at your manual campaigns from the start. The key thing that you're trying to achieve with those is organic ranking and to get those initial sales. Then you can have your auto campaign. And the key thing for that is you're going to generate some sales, but it's really the keyword and the search term discovery, which is your key goal on the auto campaigns. So what I would recommend from the start, and it depends on what your budget looks like and how aggressive you want to be, but from the start, I would first do manual campaigns, bidding aggressively on a very limited, highly relevant amount of keywords. So again, you're trying to rank for these, so let's own those spots, let's get those initial sales, let's get the organic ranking up. And then for the auto campaign, be running that, but don't have as high of a bid. You're trying to discover new keywords, but on the discovery side, it's more of a long-term play. So in the shorter term, we want to get our ranking up pretty quickly. So I would allocate more of the budget to the manual side and then still have auto campaigns running. You're going to find a ton of awesome search terms that convert. And then at that point, you can move those downstream to your manual campaigns where you're going to have more control.
So that's a perfect answer, actually. So we have from Faraz, and he's just following up on his previous question. If we just can't copy our competitors' search terms and targeting more broad and generic keywords, which will spike across anyway and spend higher. So in short, you need to do this for a couple of months to get things under control.
Let's see. Target more broad. Will spike a cost. Yeah. So if we're talking, are we talking on the ranking side? I'm assuming that it's like more of a new product launch.
So we'll put a question again, probably.
Yeah. So we can assume that it's a new product launch. So yes, what I would say is from the start, you don't want to get too broad in what you're trying to target. And the reason is that from the start, you don't have that social proof, meaning I don't have those reviews to give people to help them convert really well. And so from the start, I want to really focus on my core market and I want to keep it pretty narrow in who I'm targeting. After that point, now once I've got those initial reviews, the reviews are good, I've got the sales history built up in Amazon. At that point, now I can start to broaden it out. But I would just do it strategically and not broaden too quickly. Because if you go super broad or you target very generic keywords, you can lose a lot of money really quickly. And so we like to do it in stages. So I would, especially for new product launches, start very narrow. And then once you see success there, now start widening out what you're targeting for keywords and product targets.
Okay, perfect. So this is probably like this question has been asked by so many people. So, hi Joe, launching a PPC for new product does not have any reviews. Our product is getting converted on ASINs more than keywords in auto campaign, and in ASIN targeting keywords in auto and manual phrase broad are not performing that much. Would
Sure.
ASIN targeting give me same juice as keyword, and how can I shift campaign focus from ASIN targeting to keyword targeting?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Umar. And so that's awesome that you're converting for product targets. So what that's saying is that somebody else was browsing one of your competitors and they saw your ad, they clicked over and they purchased from you. So that's a great indication from the start that your product is working well. And so that's good. I would just keep pushing those. So in terms of like juice for ranking, you may not get as much for like specific terms, but you're still building that history within Amazon. And if they're seeing that somebody clicks on your competitor and then they come to you, whatever your competitor ranks for, they're going to say, okay, well, I'm associating these two. Like they actually click on the competitor after searching for whatever term they do, and then they end up buying this other product. I'm going to actually improve the rank of your product for that term. So there's definitely ranking juice that gets cascaded down. And so the other piece that I would look at is, say there's a couple ASINs or a couple competitors where you're getting a ton of sales from. Now you can look at those competitors and see, okay, what are the main keywords or where are their ads showing up? And I'm going to target those keywords because I know eventually, even if they find the competitor, they're going to click the ad and come over to me. So why don't I target that specifically? One other piece that you can do, so if you're targeting broad, broad tends to be very broad, and you can get a lot of irrelevant search terms in there. So I would stick with phrase, or if there's some that you see your competitors targeting hard, and you think you can outsell them for that, you've got a better product, then you can even go exact for those specific terms in the manual campaigns. Again, starting a little bit more narrow on the keyword side, but utilizing those ASINs or those competitors, that you're getting the sales from, now trying to figure out what they're ranking for. If your product is better, which it appears to be since they're coming over and purchasing from you, now start targeting those keywords and keep building on that success.
Thank you for answering this. So, what I have to do if my product getting clicked, but there are sales too low, but
Sure.
there are too low sales.
Sure. Yep. And so a couple things to look at is one, where's your product in the life cycle? So is it a new product launch? If so, it may not be getting sales right now because you don't have those initial reviews. If it's an established product and it has reviews, then typically what we're seeing is the keyword that you're targeting either isn't relevant, but you should be able to determine that pretty easily by looking at the keyword and saying, okay, intuitively, does this make sense if somebody was looking for me? If it is relevant, then what you have is a conversion rate issue. And so a conversion rate issue doesn't tie to ad specifically, it ties to your product, to the price, and to the listing. And so what I would say is that if you're having an issue with ads where you're getting the clicks, the keyword is relevant, but it's not converting, I would focus all your time and effort on the product listing, and then reviewing price points. Because you can have the best ad strategy in the world, but if your product page doesn't convert, then your ad stats are going to look poor. So just want people to understand that if you're looking at your ads and you're saying, okay, this keyword makes sense, it should convert, but it's not, something's wrong with my ad strategy. No, it's not the ad strategy. I would put all my focus, if I'm sitting in your shoes as a seller, into the product listing and how do I improve the product based off of the reviews and everything that I've got to make sure it converts better. So the two key things that you need first off is that awesome listing, that awesome product. Once you've got that, now you can utilize the advanced ad strategies to drive traffic to it. They convert, you get sales, and then everything really works out.
Okay, so the key takeaway here is like you need a good product and you need good listing. So these are the takeaways. Uh, so there is a saying, a very popular one, that a good product, like saves a bad product. A good advertising saves a bad product to fail.
Yeah.
So your advertising strategy should be good, and your product should be nice enough that people should buy.
Yep.
So I have an amazing question from Anfal, and he asks, "What is your take on campaigns competing against each other when a single keyword is targeted in multiple campaigns?"
Yeah, great question, Anval.
Yeah.
And so just to debunk a myth, and we have confirmed this directly with Amazon advertising multiple times, if you have the same keyword in multiple campaigns, they do not compete against each other. So just know that, all right, if I'm targeting a keyword in this campaign, this campaign, this campaign, it's not going to drive up the bids overall. Now, if you have a competitor who's targeting the same keyword, now you're going to be bidding against each other, but within the same account, you're never going to compete against yourself. One piece to note, though, is that say I have the same keyword in 4 different campaigns. What can happen is that for one impression, I can get shown in campaign 1. And then the next impression I can get shown in campaign 2. The next impression I get shown in 3 and then 4. And what happens is now you've segmented the data. So the data is not combined for that keyword within a single campaign. And what happens is it makes it harder to make very good decisions from your advertising because you have the same keyword showing up in numerous different campaigns. So what we like to do is structure the campaign so you don't have overlap between them, and essentially you're isolating the data into a single campaign. This allows you to get all the clicks, the impressions, the sales into a single campaign where now you can use that information to make more solid judgments on bids, placement adjustments, all that good stuff. But just know that even if you have it split up between multiple campaigns, that's really not a big deal. You're not going to compete against yourself. Ideally, with the perfect structure, you've got it segmented where now you're going to kind of isolate the data into different campaigns. So now you can make more solid adjustments.
Okay, so here Faraz is saying thank you for like he's saying thank you, Joe, for the giving bunch of golden nuggets. It's
Oh,
it's
for
not
sure.
a single it's not a single golden nugget. It's a bunch of golden nugget that you are throwing right now.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
Okay, so I have one question. Like, what should be the strategy to get your cost low with time? So, how a person can get his ACOS. Probably my ACOS is 40% right now for in specific campaigns, and how
Sure.
we can get them low to like an average of 20 or 25% ACOS, how long a period should be, and what should be the strategy and like that I have to follow to bring higher ACOS to lower ACOS.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great question. And so the key thing to note is that ACOS and ad sales, they're kind of a balance between the two. So if I pull on one side of the string, the other side goes up or down. And the reason is that um, if, say, I'm good with going from a 20% ACOS to 30% ACOS, what that allows us to do is increase the bids now. So I increase the cost per click for your main keywords. But what that could do is say you're showing up at the bottom of the first page for search term results. Now I can bid more and I can go up to the top of the page. I can get a lot more impressions and sales and clicks by doing that. Yes, I do increase my ACOS. So I take a margin hit. I'm spending more per product on ads, but I may be getting a lot more volume in ads too. So just note that there's always this trade off between ad sales and ACOS. And so the key objective shouldn't just be to decrease my ACOS over time. It's finding that right level on what is the right ACOS target I can have to make sure that I'm getting that right amount of sales. And the only way to do that is through testing. So, but
So,
I mean, another piece. So, if we wanted, so say we've got an example where my ACOS is too high and I want to get my ACOS lower. So, key things to look at there. Going through the search term report, we like to look at lifetime data because if I just look at like the 30, 60-day search term report, sometimes there may be search terms that only get a click like once a month, but over time it can add up. So we pull all that information in our database and we can see lifetime data as we go. So reviewing search term reports and setting negatives is key. Another piece is that say your ACOS is too high, you can decrease how broad you're currently targeting. So if I'm trying initially say I wanted to really increase my ad sales, so I went pretty broad on my keywords, meaning I was trying to hit more general search terms. At that point, I can start weeding some of those out and getting back to the core highly relevant keywords as I go. So really to try to get ACOS down, it's getting more narrow in your targeting. Yes, it can decrease ad sales a bit, but sometimes those improvements in ACOS is definitely worth it. And then you should always be doing general maintenance on the account, making sure that we're setting negatives, that we're weeding out poor performers. If a keyword's performing over target, that we're cutting back the bids, that we're adjusting the placement adjustments for sponsored products. So these are all key maintenance items, and then you can really use how broad or narrow you are for targeting, along with your bid controls to then set that ideal ACOS level that you have longer term.
oh my God, that's a detailed one. Thank you for sharing a bunch of nuggets, and that's a, probably the detailed answer I need to hear, like because it will really help me as well. So
For
because
sure.
we always want to get our cost low with time. Obviously, like we know that we cannot get it below 20 or 20. Like like once in a blue moon, you get it like below 15%. But in an average cost should be 20-25%, and it's a good indication that you are doing right things. So if like okay, so Kasim asked like if a product is year old, but we want to start PPC on this product with very low reviews, should we start with automatic campaigns or manual campaign?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great question. And if the product is a year old, a couple things you already have going for you is you have that initial sales history established, not necessarily through ads, but just through organic. And so that helps you out on the relevancy side for Amazon. Because whenever a new product launches, they just have to look at like title, description, um, your bullet points, all those key pieces, but they don't have the history behind it. Since you have the history established already, that definitely gives you a head start. So for an established product that still has low reviews, what I would do is I would still I would focus on the manual campaign. with highly relevant keywords, but also put in the auto campaign for discovery. You may be able to get a little bit more aggressive on the auto side just because you have that initial history established. If you came to me and said, okay, I have a year-old product and it has a ton of reviews and already has a ton of organic sales, then I would get much more aggressive on the PPC side. I would set up the full campaign structures from the start. I would populate more broad keywords into the manual campaigns. But if it just has a few reviews and it's not getting too many sales right now, then I would focus more on the narrow targeted strategy and then build out as you go. So if you see initial success from that more targeted strategy, you can build it out a lot quicker as you go. But overall, that's great that you already have a year of history because that gives you a head start on the advertising side.
So that's in the starting point already. Like the Kasim already has starting point, and he just have to shoot things up. And because of the history, like he will get an advantage after, like overall.
Exactly.
So okay, so that's an interesting. But what if we get top keywords from H10 and directly Helium 10 and directly launch a product with manual keywords instead of running auto campaign? Is it a good strategy?
Yeah. So we do like out of the external software that we use, like Helium 10 is one of the only ones, and so they've got a great database of different keywords that you can use. My key piece is do not just dump all the keywords that are provided into a manual campaign. So use your intuition there to figure out what is the most highly relevant keywords. And then the other piece to note is that um, we're always surprised with different search terms that come out of auto campaigns that convert really well. It's really tough to predict how people will search for your product, but there's a lot of great nuggets that come out of the auto campaigns. And the other thing to keep in mind is that Amazon has one of the biggest databases of consumer preferences and shopping patterns that humanity has ever known. And with Amazon Web Services, they're also a leader in machine learning and finding these different correlations. So their auto campaigns have gotten a lot better over time at targeting and making sure that they're only hitting relevant search terms. So I would say, even if you feel like you've got a good range of keywords from, say, Helium 10 and using your intuition, still running auto campaigns. You can run them with a lower bid if you'd like, so they're not eating as much spend. But I would utilize that all the time. We use auto campaigns for every one of our clients just because it's such a great source for finding those search terms that we never would have thought of.
So that's an answer. Like you need to check with both. This is what I think. Like things should go. Like you shouldn't be focusing on one strategy only. You should be focusing on multiple strategy simultaneously. If you keep on working on auto PPC all the time, then there is a loss. If you're working on manual PPC, then you are missing a chance to find more relevant, probably, or you're missing a chance of discovering a new keywords. So strategy should be like multiple strategies should work and simultaneously. You shouldn't be focusing on one thing, right?
Yeah, that's a beautiful point right there too. It's not putting all your eggs in one basket, not putting your strategy into one specific piece, because the Amazon ecosystem, it's always changing, and so we should always be continually testing as we go. So we focused a lot on auto and manual campaigns, which really tie to like sponsored products. That's a great place to start because sponsored products tends to get about 70 to 80% of overall ad spend. But once you've got those established, like say you start with auto and manual campaigns do great, auto campaigns don't do as well. Well, I can cut back the bids a bit. And then maybe now that money that I'm saving, let's invest that into sponsored brands and let's test that. And then let's do sponsored brands video. And then let's do sponsored display product targeting. And I can use product targets or ASINs that are working well within sponsored products in sponsored display. So these are all pieces that you can keep building out. And Atif, I think that's a great point where we should always be testing and utilizing these different strategies. Some will work, some won't work as well. But what we can do is start slowly with each of these. And then if it works well, ramp it up. If it doesn't, then cut it back. So yeah, there's a lot more things to test than there used to be. So definitely just keep testing.
Yeah. So like I really like this one. Any difference you have seen in having too many keywords in one campaign? Does it make any difference having five keyword per ad set versus all in one with high daily budget?
Sure. Yeah. So if you're getting to the size where you've got 1,000 keywords in one manual campaign, like one, you either have a super high selling product or you've keyword stuffed a ton of these keywords in there, and there's probably a lot of ones that are irrelevant. So there's some people that recommend single keyword campaigns. That can be a decent strategy, but I would only use it for like your super high performing hero keywords. For everything else, like Amazon has done tons of studies on this. Like this is a hard piece to really split test. So I don't have like hard data behind it. But what they typically say is, like the 40 to 50 range for keywords, that tends to be like a good spot for overall campaigns. But if you've got more than that, as long as they're relevant, like we see some campaigns that have hundreds of keywords, and there's so many that are getting impressions and doing really well. So we don't have any hard limits. I would say avoid like single keyword. I see some people using single keyword campaigns for every single keyword. Um, Personally, I think it just adds way too much complexity. And I would rather combine a lot of these keywords together. Now I'm getting more data. Now I can make better adjustments, like placement adjustments, which are at the campaign level for all those keywords versus having all this segmented data. So I guess in summary, I would say that as long as you're not up like getting close to the 1,000 keyword range, there shouldn't be much of a limit there, and we haven't seen much of an impact for having a lot of keywords in a single campaign. That being said, if you have some keywords that are performing really well, say like I have 3 keywords that are driving 50% of my traffic, maybe I want to segment those out into their own campaigns where now I can get really specific on campaign level pieces like placement adjustments, targeting top of search, product page, all that good stuff.
Okay. So we have a question from Johnson. He says, like, how often customer buys after clicking on ads? So
Yeah,
that's I really want to know how often customer buy. Amazon charges us for every impression, but
yeah.
customer not buying in eventually. So
Yeah. So if you're looking at click to order, so if I have 100 people click, how many people order? We refer to that as the conversion rate for the listing. And so for rules of thumb, what I would say is that like 10% conversion rate or better. So 1 out of 10 people who clicks on my ad converts, you're sitting in a pretty good spot. That tends to be like our median, our average conversion rate. So it's 10% conversion rate, 1 out of 10 clicks leads to a sale. That being said, it depends on the ad type. So sponsored brands video, that tends to convert about 20%. I think it's like 18 or 19% right now for our overall accounts. Top of search sponsored product ads tend to convert at 20%. So 2 out of 10 or 1 out of 5 people who click convert to sales. So we have a wide range. We just did a case study actually where we had one client, they had a 0.2% conversion rate. So meaning
oh
I can't even do the math in my head. So it's definitely less than 1 out of 100 that click actually convert, but their product is over $1,000, and so a super high value product. And so we actually got really good ACOS values for that because we were able to bid pretty low for their keywords, and then when they got a sale, it was a huge dollar amount too.
yeah.
So conversion rates, it definitely compares on what products you're selling to. So if you're selling more luxury higher end products, a conversion rate between 1 and 5% is not unheard of, and in many cases can be healthy because a lot of people are going to browse around a lot more.
And
For
and I think personally, like the product which are expensive has a good area to play with PPC, like because there are less competition, more like there are less Chinese sellers falling into these markets, and you have a good, great room to play. A product price more than 60, 70, $80. So like, or probably $100. So it do have a good room to play with PPC, and your cost is relatively lower than the competitive niche. Like you're selling a supplement for $20, or you're selling something in like health and household category for like under $10. So definitely you have a huge room to play with when it's come to expensive products.
for sure.
Pretty high. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, definitely. Yep, and so definitely take that into account too. The category, what's the price point when looking at what is a good conversion rate.
Okay, so we have one from Chavez, and he says, "How important is CTR in campaign structure? Should we separate high CTR and low CTR exact keywords in a separate campaign?"
So personally, we don't. And the key reason is that we could have low CTR ads, but we may not have to pay as much for those ads. So, for instance, like one spot where I would get low click through rate is on product pages. So product pages can get like 0.1%, 0.5, 0.1 to 0.5% conversion rate, a lot lower than average search or keyword related placements. Um, Even though I'm getting a low CTR, when they click it, if I'm getting a good conversion rate and I'm not having to pay that much per click, I could get a good ad return from that. So we focus a lot more on the conversion rate and then what we have to pay per click to get that click. And then that really sets how we look at it. So we don't focus as much on click through rate just because it's highly dependent on the placement and the ad type. We look a lot more at the return that you're getting from that ad, which means ACOS or ROAS. And that's set from my conversion rate and what I pay per click or my cost per click.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we have like another like Anfal asks another question. What is the
Yeah.
best KPI in terms of analyzing your PPC campaigns, ACOS or TECOS? If we are aiming to scale our sales but setting ACOS as a key indicator, we end up losing our organic sales as well by setting our bids too low to control the ACOS. Your take.
Yeah.
Anfal
Yeah.
is putting up good questions, right?
Yeah, on follow. I
This
like this.
guy, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So no, this is a great question. So if I look at ACOS, that's really a measure on how well my overall ads are performing. So that's like an ad efficiency measure. So if I spend $1, what am I getting in return for my ads? Just looking at the ad sales. However, it doesn't take into account organic sales or total sales. And so that's where tacos comes into play. So tacos is great more as a budgeting tool. So if I target a 10% tacos, I know I'm going to have a consistent spend that goes to my overall sales. And so what we've seen is that, yes, you can just focus on the advertising specific metrics, but if you just focus solely on the ads and don't take the bigger picture into account, you can end up losing ranking, like what you were saying. And so, what I would say to differentiate it is just making sure that you've got keywords and campaigns that are specifically set for ranking. So, for those, we're probably not as focused on ACOS. I'm much more focused on maintaining those top spots, getting those conversions, which leads to better organic rankings. And then I have other campaigns that are set up more in terms of ACOS. And those, I'm much more concerned about the return that I'm getting. It's not as much about being aggressive on the ranking side, it's making sure that I'm using my ad spend effectively. So it is really a balance between the two. And unfortunately, I don't have any good, like, here's exactly what you should target for an ACOS because it's highly dependent. Like, for instance, if my product is in supplements is extremely competitive. And so there, I'm going to be focusing a lot more on ranking because I'm going to make the majority of my profit on my organic sales. And my ads is really there to just make sure that I'm staying up in the rankings and I'm getting those reviews. If I'm in a much less competitive category, then I'm not as focused on ranking side because my product is naturally going to rank. And then I can just focus more on the margin that I'm getting with ACOS. So I would really try to separate the two and just determine, all right, here's the ads where I'm really focused on ranking and I'm going to take more of a tacoist approach for this. And then for the other ones, here's the return, the advertising return or efficiency metric that I should use. So definitely a balance between the two.
Balance between two worlds actually.
Yeah.
Echoes and tacos, these are the two worlds when it's
Yeah,
come to Amazon.
and it is honestly like it's a product specific, category specific decision that you have to make on what to target and what to use for each. So yeah, I wish I had more concrete information, but both metrics are very important to take into account.
Okay, so I have one thing to ask, like how can advertising readiness is improved? Like how can we improve our advertising readiness?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So to be ready for advertising, from the start, if you have initial reviews established, so if I remember right from Amazon's exact guidelines for starting for advertising readiness, they say have 5 to 10 initial reviews. The A plus or enhanced brand content is huge. Making sure you've got solid pictures. Solid pictures are so big. The title is an extremely big piece to keep into account. So just picture like pull up an ad and just look at what you see. So you see the title, you see the initial picture, you see the price point, you see the reviews. So those are the key things to focus on when getting ready to advertise. That being said, from the start, there are many instances where we will run ads with 0 reviews. The key thing to keep into account is that the advertising performance from the start isn't going to look as good because they're not going to convert as well from the start because you don't have that social proof. So you can definitely start advertising before you have those initial reviews. Just know that your advertising in terms of ACOS or ROAS isn't going to look as good from the start because your key goal starting out is to make sure that you're getting those initial sales. Once you get those initial sales, you get those reviews. Now, once you get those reviews, now it converts better. Your organic ranking goes up. Now my ads start performing better, and ACOS improves over time.
Okay, so we have from Mohsin. Hey Joe, there are these winning search terms which I know of, but I only convert when I bid high, even higher than the bid range. How can I possibly have lower cost on such higher bids?
Yeah, yeah. So, Mawson, that's a great question. So the key thing that we had to take into account there. So if you have to bid high to get these search or to get to get shown for that search term to then convert, um, we have to look at what your competitors are doing too. So, for instance, are you having to sell at a lower price than your competitors right now? If you have to sell at a lower price, then that means that, say, if you convert at a 10%, so 1 out of 10 clicks converts, but I'm selling at a lower price, my ACOS is going to look worse than my competitor. So that's one piece. Another piece is, am I converting as well as my competitor? Because really, the bid that it takes to get that impression is set by the market, which is set by your competitors. So if you have really well established competitors, it puts you at a disadvantage. Because say if they convert 2 out of 10 clicks and you convert 1 out of 10 clicks, they're actually getting an ACOS that is twice as good as what you're getting by bidding the same amount.
Yeah.
Um, and then the third piece is relevancy, and sales history really ties into it too. So if Amazon determines that your competitor is much more relevant, they may actually be giving the cost per click to your competitor at a lower cost per click. And so that also puts you at a disadvantage too. So unfortunately, a lot of the pieces really tie to the conversion rate, to your listing and your price point. So I would really focus on that and seeing, okay, how do I increase my conversion rate? How do I specifically speak to the people who search for this term so more people convert? And then once you get that social proof, you get that the reviews really built up, you're now super competitive with your competition. Now, can I increase my price point too, which also helps in with ACOS too? So I would focus a lot more on the listing side if you're not getting that solid ACOS to see how you can improve once people click to turn them into sales.
Oh my God, thank you. Like I just have to say, like there are questions popping up on the screen, and you have been answering them amazingly. So I have one last question from my side. So I just want like, what are the best tips and tricks for people going with PPC in 2021? What should be their focus on, and what are the elements like which they should consider while running a PPC, so they don't get bored or like, oh my God, that's expensive. PPC is very expensive. Amazon is just killing us with the PPC bids and everything. So
Yeah.
what's your takeaway on this?
Yeah, so my initial approach is make sure like kind of like what we've covered for the product launches. So if you're just getting started, Start very targeted. Don't get too broad. So if I'm selling a very specific product, do not target the most general search term that goes with that, because that will kill your ad budget from the start. So start very specific, and then always be testing. And always, if those initial very targeted terms work, now broaden that out as you go. One plug that I'll have to throw in there is, so we actually just started the Ad Project podcast. So if anybody's getting value out of this, what Matt and I do, which is he's the co-founder of Ad Advance, is we walk through specific topic by topic. So we start out with sponsored products and talk about different types of category or different types of ads, how you should do your bid strategy. How is ACoS calculated and how does that relate to your bids? Kind of doing a deep dive into what we just covered here. We'll work our way into sponsored products or sponsored brands, sponsored display, and get into DSP2, which is a very fun topic that's definitely emerging.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of success. So yeah, if you're getting value here, I would definitely check that out too, where we can do a much more
Like
deep dive
I
and
am
get
actually
into our
following
mind.
you. Actually, I'm following you on this.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've been following. Yeah, I always follow you. So one thing, before we wrap up this amazing session, I just want to ask, uh, what's your secret strategy that you don't share with anyone while you are running a PPC campaign? You just have to tell.
Yeah,
How do
yeah. I
people
would
manage this? You just have to tell me right away.
Yeah, I would say a secret strategy that we're utilizing right now. So DSP, the demand side
Yeah.
platform for Amazon advertising, it's more of this hidden piece that you have to get specific access to. We're using
Hmm.
it for retargeting and remarketing. Um, Results have been really good. So we're starting to roll this out for a lot more clients. So I think you're going to be hearing a lot more about DSP coming in the next year or two. We're doing a lot of tests and seeing some great results. So that is a key piece that we're rolling out and investing heavily into.
Yeah. That's your secret sauce, actually.
One
With
of yeah,
advanced,
we'll say one of
one of
many.
yeah, one of many, because you have so many secret sauce when it's at
Yeah,
advanced is doing amazing in industry, and they have like whole lot of secret sauce, and this is just one of many. So thank you, Joe, for answering to the audience and answering to my question as well, and sharing all your experiences and throwing the nuggets throughout this podcast. So I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it,
for
although
sure.
because
And then I'll
yeah.
just say too, if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out on Facebook, or you can follow me, Joe Sherelud, on LinkedIn, or come to adadvance.com too. So if there's any other questions that
So
we didn't get
guys,
to, feel free to send our way.
yeah, do check Joe LinkedIn and Facebook, and don't just spam him with all your questions. Just put the questions that are necessary, because I know people are gonna spam you if you're gonna say that they can reach out to you on your Facebook.
Yeah,
So you are going to get so many requests from Pakistan for sure. All the loved one that enjoyed this amazing session, because people loved it. They
yeah.
love your smile. Thank
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah.
smiling Joe. So I'm just about to wrap this. Thank you, Joe, for
Thanks.
being here, and we are getting amazing, like brilliant session. Joe and Atif. Thank you, Joe and Atif. Thank you guys for being an amazing audience, and thank you, Joe, for being an amazing guest.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Signing off. Thank you.